What are you looking at? Blimey, is that the time? Sorry, Harry, I'm gonna have to leave you. Dumbledore will be wanting his, well, he'll be wanting to see me. Now, your train leaves in 10 minutes. There's your ticket. Stick to it, Harry. That's very important. Stick to your ticket.
Platform 9. But Hagrid, there must be a mistake. This says platform 9 3/4. There's no such thing, is there?
The Harry Potter franchise is known and loved by millions around the world, with both J.K. Rowling's iconic book series and the arguably equally successful film series. Today I'm talking about one filmic installment in particular, the one that I feel is the most overlooked and underappreciated. Now, usually when the 8 massively popular installments of the series are ranked, the third, Prisoner of Azkaban, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, is often regarded the most highly, with the final film, Deathly Hallows Part 2, following it. But I'm of the opinion that the second spot is deserved by one that's often ranked among the lowest. That is, of course, the Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Yeah, I'm still here. But you two carry on. Don't let me spoil the fun.
Harry Potter had a significant impact on my childhood. I was, it's safe to say, obsessed. But although I read the books first, as you should do, my love was mainly towards the films. If you were to ask me back then which one was my favourite, you'd have been unlikely to get a straight answer. Even now I find it difficult to decide between them, as I love Harry Potter as a world, as a story, and not just the individual chapters in that story. But the Deathly Hallows Part 1 was always one of those ones I had a particular liking to. For a while it was hard to pinpoint why. At that age my reasoning would probably have been as simple as, it's better, but as I've grown up I've come to realise why I think it's as good as it is. It's different. Some people dislike it specifically for that reason, but I think it's a perfect change in pace and style that to me make it stand out from the rest. Not to say each instalment is overly similar, they're all unique in their own way, but there's some obvious differences in part 1 that really do make it different. For one, it doesn't take place in Hogwarts, which is unlike all of the others. Immediately that's a huge difference, and because of it there's a greater focus on the Golden Trio's characterisation. It's the franchise at its most intimate.
Think I don't know how this feels?
No, you don't know how it feels! Your parents are dead! You have no family!
Stop! Stop!
Finally, go! Go then!
At the end of the previous Potter, the Half-Blood Prince, Harry is tasked with tracking down and destroying Voldemort's Horcruxes. A dangerous task, but of course he won't be alone. Ron and Hermione will come with him. That sets up the plot of this film to be dedicated to the Horcrux hunt. We watch the Golden Trio travel to various places, searching for these Horcruxes, but if you look at it more closely, you can see that it's something of a character drama in disguise. What makes the character drama so good is that there's not one side in the right. Morally, it's complicated. You sympathise with Ron, Harry and Hermione, making it all the more interesting. If you were to analyse the interaction between the trio and put aside the story, you'd see that there's a lot of time given to the thoughts and feelings of them. A film with a 2.5-hour runtime, no prominent side plots and no Hogwarts has much more time than any of the others to give an insight into these beloved characters like never before. Perhaps the best example of this shift in focus is what we see of Ron. Over the course of the franchise, Ron has been somewhat limited to being a source of comedic relief. Don't get me wrong, he's a lovable character, but there's a lot of missed opportunities in the films that make his character differ quite substantially from that of the books. However, in part 1 there is a much greater level of focus on Ron than previously. He's not just the guy with the witty one-liners, and he's not played off as a goofball as he often is. In this film we see Ron at his most vulnerable, his most courageous, his most angry and more. The range we're presented with gives us a much greater understanding of how he copes under certain situations and moods. This is not the Ron we've seen before, it's Ron but with more layers. It adds complexity and depth that was missing in the films prior. Up until the trio are in possession of the locket, Ron is still a little goofy, but he's braver and he's brighter. He makes mature decisions, and you could say that's due to him getting older, but I think it's also because his character is being better handled. However, there's a dramatic alteration in Ron's attitude after he's in possession of the locket. Because of the locket's effects, he grows tired, easily irritable, and just depressed overall. The locket causes the wearer to have an enhanced negative, angry, and pessimistic outlook. It emphasises all the emotions that the wearer wouldn't want to feel. When you couple such an object with Ron, an optimistic, funny, and light-hearted guy, it's natural a change that drastic would occur.
Seems strange, mate. Dumbledore sends you off to find all these Horcruxes, but doesn't tell you how to destroy them. Doesn't that bother you?
Ron is a family guy, as we know. The Weasleys are a big happy bunch. They all get along and they all look out for each other. In most cases this is a source of strength for Ron, but wearing the locket, his fears surrounding his family come to light. And that strong bond he has with them is exploited, worsening his mood. He's listening to a radio 24/7 to make sure he doesn't hear any of his family members' names on the list of missing witches and wizards.
Please take the Horcrux. You wouldn't be saying any of this if you hadn't been wearing it all day.
Do you know why I listen to that radio every night, dear? To make sure I don't hear Ginny's name. Or Fred. Or George. Or Mum.
What, you think I'm not listening too?
Ron is also faced with another mental challenge, his feelings for Hermione. The locket influences his view of her relationship with Harry to have romantic sparks to it. This isn't helped by the fact that Ron's absence leads them to spending more time together alone. And even though their relationship is purely on a friendship basis, it's still a nagging thought for Ron. There's an air of tension when the three are together alone in the woods that's formed by how they see their relationships with each other. We know Ron is bothered by Hermione and Harry when we see the vision of them that bursts from the locket. This film creates a sense of uncertainty when there are scenes such as Harry and Hermione's dance in the tent. It's hard to know if there's a romantic aura to it which could threaten Ron's relationship with Hermione later down the line. Ron's feelings play a key part in his return. He says that Hermione was a guiding light for him, and that moment is one that I believe is a deciding point which would later lead to their kiss in the Chamber of Secrets.
What exactly did I say, may I ask?
My name. Just my name. Like a whisper.
So more time is spent focusing on Ron as a character, but that isn't the only reason I think this is the most underrated film in the series. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Part 1 is the most intimate of the franchise. It's slower paced and gives time to moments that matter. Time is given to show the bond between Harry and Hermione, a friendship that feels like one that's been through years of highs and lows together. It comes so naturally that not for 1 minute do you question its authenticity. This is a special bond. The nature of this bond is so well conveyed you can clearly differentiate between it and that of Hermione and Ron, or Harry and Ron. Yes, there's always been a focus on their chemistry as a group, but now more than ever we see the connections within that group and the intricacies of that dynamic. But away from the characters for a second, what about the tone? Going into this film, the stakes have never been higher. Voldemort is out there plotting his return to power, Dumbledore is dead, and the Golden Trio knows it's down to them to hunt down these Horcruxes, the only way they can kill Voldemort. Hope is dwindling, the mood is somber. Part 1 has to accurately show this darker tone throughout. Stuff it with poorly timed comedy or deflect from the reality of the atmosphere given the circumstances, and it's failed. It's essential that the tone is fitting for this film to stand a chance of working, and thankfully it does. Immediately the film opens to a close-up of the Minister for Magic. Director David Yates is well aware of how he needs to approach the tonal aspects of the opening as it will set the mood going forward. A direct speech from Bill Nye staring straight at the camera mentioning the dark times they're going through is a bluntly solemn jab as an opening. There's no dancing around the point, these are
dark times there is no denying.
But stick with this level of clear-cut communication and you risk coming off heavy-handed, but this isn't a problem in Part 1. Presenting the atmosphere isn't always this explicit, and there's a balance between subtly implying it and giving a sharp point. Whether it's as subtle as shooting scenes with dimmer lighting, as dramatic as Hermione being literally tortured and cut by a deranged psychopath for her bloodline, or somewhere in between, such as the death of a beloved house elf on a lone beach with crashing waves and strong winds blowing the tears from Harry's eyes, in which the setting and direction enhance the cold feeling from this event. There is range. Range that taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, this isn't Great Hall feasts, Diagon Alley trips or potion classes anymore, this is serious. Harry is a man now, he has grown. But so have the stakes, and the style in which this story is executed has developed in suit. My aim with this video was to explain why I believe this is an underrated film, but in order for it to be underrated, there has to be a predominant opinion that this isn't that great. One of the primary points against this adaptation is that it doesn't follow the source material closely enough. I can fully understand this point. There are key parts of the book that are left out which could have been great on screen, but frankly, it doesn't really bother me. I try to treat a filmic adaptation of a franchise separately from its source material when I can, because as long as everything works in the films, it doesn't matter to me if that isn't a mirror image of what happens in the books. Yeah, okay, sometimes I get annoyed if a film strays too far from its source material, or if it handles a storyline or character differently and it's noticeably worse, but if I like how they do it, I don't see that as an issue necessarily. And that's how I view the Deathly Hallows Part 1, not a perfect representation of what happens in the book, but a brilliant chapter in the film series. A film that amongst the blockbuster franchise feels stylized, personal and rawer than the others. And that is why Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 is underrated.